Today's episode of Market Talk is brought to you in part by Growmark FS. Keeping up on the latest in ag is a challenge to say the least, but there are experts nearby ready to help. You'll find them at your local FS. You can trust them to bring you customized agronomic grain and energy solutions born of the latest thinking. That's because FS specialists receive continuous training that keeps them current on the latest trends, practices, and technologies. So you get local expertise that's both exceptional and up to date. Visit fssystem.com to learn how FS is bringing you what's next. And good afternoon. Welcome into Market Talk for this Tuesday, September 28th. Great to have you join us once again. I'm your host, Jesse Allen. Thank you for being here. Find us online, markettalkag.com. That is our home on the web, markettalkag.com. Find all of our streaming sources there. Anywhere you can listen to podcasts, you can find the show, find our YouTube channel there, all of our social media, latest news and market information. It's all one-stop shop, markettalkag.com. Had a bit of a down day in the markets, a lot of outside pressure to talk about, and we're going to discuss all of it. We're going to bring in our good friend Matt Bennett with agmarket.net. He is in the combine today. Matt, it's great to have you on, my friend, and appreciate you making the time, even from the middle of a soybean field here on this Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. We're basically in the middle of what should be an extremely fast-paced week for soybean harvest throughout most of the Corn Belt. I think, a lot of producers are talking about the fact that their soybeans are ready. And so same thing here, basically pulled in here yesterday, into this farm, and we harvested about 200 acres of soybeans. We're looking to harvest maybe 2 to 250 today. And hopefully, by the end of the week, we're going to have a lot of our soybeans done, which we've only got about 1,500 acres of soybeans. But regardless, we can make really good progress. We had several acres done coming into this week, but bottom line is we're looking at, perfect weather. I mean, the wind blew last night. We were able to see really good conditions, not only yesterday morning, but this morning, for starting early. And so, it's been really nice to be able to get out and go.
Well, you talk about that perfect weather, Matt, and I think that's a good segue into the markets today, kind of maybe getting a little bit of that seasonal harvest pressure on the market, but also a lot of outside market pressure we had out there in the grain trade today. Soybeans, wheat down double digits, corn got pulled moderately lower as well. That dollar index rising on the day. I think I looked at it earlier. Let's see, U.S. dollar index, highest level since November of last year today. So that's obviously going to put a weight on the markets. What are your thoughts on Tuesday's close and just some of that outside pressure that we saw today?
I think yesterday, if we want to go back to Monday, we came in here Sunday night and, calls were for steady to lower, actually moved the market higher on Monday, significantly on corn. You post 13-cent gains. You come in here today and you give half up and back, kind of frustrating. But at the same time, I guess the way I look at the corn market is that we're up 6 cents on the week. And I sure like seeing that right here in the middle of harvest. Soybeans, I'm not surprised at all that you would see some pressure as we get into harvest, and I think harvesting in earnest once again, first of all. Second of all, you don't hear a lot of producers talking about disappointing soybean yields, whereas I feel like on corn it's been more of a mixed bag so far. So I think that there's a lot of folks harvesting extremely good corn, some people harvesting corn that quite frankly disappointed them because of disease pressure. Soybeans, I just keep hearing people say, I got pretty good beans, but you look at what that August weather was for the bulk of the Corn Belt, and you've got to tip your hat and say, it just figures that we would have pretty good beans. We've had really good beans here in Central Illinois. I don't want to talk yields, but I can tell you that our expectations have been met and then some.
Well, and staying on that corn market here real quick, I am with you. I'm happy that we're still up for the week, especially going into a USDA report on Thursday. We know that the quarterly grain stocks can always be a market-moving report, but seeing these levels here as we're getting into harvest, and you mentioned some of that disease pressure in some areas, one has to wonder what we could see on Thursday's report and if it could move corn and maybe give us some more bullish momentum. I think one has to wonder, but it feels like there's also a lot of worry maybe out there, or just a lot of guessing. No one really knows what way this USDA report on Thursday could move these markets, it feels like.
Yeah, I think that I look at the report from two different vantage points. I mean, as far as corn's concerned, I've got to think that you're going to see a pretty tight stocks number. I don't see any way around it. Our sister companies, John Stewart and Associates, they deal almost exclusively with commercial based business. End users, if you will, ethanol plants. A lot of folks that use a heck of a lot of corn, and one thing that John Stewart folks will tell you, and will tell you based upon what they've shared with us, is that you look around and there just wasn't too many elevator systems anywhere that had a heck of a lot of corn on hand, and so you've got to understand that this corn situation from a stock standpoint was extremely tight. We talked to folks that handle millions of bushels a year. They didn't even have a trainload of corn on hand. So I've got to think that the stocks is going to be smaller than what the USDA suggested our ending stocks number would be in the September report. I think we could be perilously close to 1 billion bushels. If you look at the official trade guess, ag market was 998. And to be honest with you, I don't know. We just want to throw that number out there because we want to highlight how tight we think this corn situation is. Beans, on the other hand, I'll tell you, beans. Everyone knew beans were tight all along. Some of the crushers backed off of bids. They were expecting the tightness, and people said, well, how's come bean basis isn't all that great? Well, because some of these end users didn't want to chase it. And so I kind of understand that mentality, but I don't think there'll be any surprises as far as soybeans go.
Well, and as well, we look at the soybean side and there's worries about the Gulf shipping. And, we're entering that window, that tight window where we have this chance to ship soybeans to China. This is our time. And, there was a lot of rumors in the market Monday afternoon that China was going to buy more soybeans. And then we didn't see anything sold today. So on the soybean side, how much worry do you have there that export pace and inspection pace isn't really picking up right now?
I am concerned. There's no question about it. I've got to think that the Chinese, they know what they're doing as far as getting beans bought at the type of price they want to get them bought at. And I think that, whenever they see a story like what was going on in the Gulf for us, I don't think that they're going to step out and say, hey, don't worry about it, guys. We're going to buy U.S. beans. Just be patient, right? I think that they're going to buy Brazilian beans just like they did. To basically put fear in everyone's minds. And what's that going to do to the price of soybeans typically? Is this going to drive it lower? It's at that point that they step in and buy U.S. beans. Now, I don't know that they're going to buy enough for us to keep pace with what the USDA is suggested, but I do think they're going to buy beans. But I'll tell you, whenever it comes to soybeans, I'm a little cautious. But I don't. You can say I'm bearish, say whatever you want. I can tell you this, and I'll tell anybody listening this: the beans that I don't have sold coming into harvest, I'm actually going to be selling beans across the scale. The reason for that is that my beans are well above my APH, and I'm still selling for $12.70 a bushel. I just don't have a problem with that. And so, what are the problems I see in beans? We've already talked about a little bit export pace. Seeing what's going to happen as far as the Gulf's concerned, but longer term, I'll tell you, these fertilizer prices being sky high suggests to me U.S. bean acres could be just as big as corn acres this next year. I'll tell you what, with some of the rhetoric coming out of China on telling their fertilizer manufacturers quit making it and quit shipping it, quit selling it, I'll tell you what, we might have a hard time being able to raise 90 million plus acres of corn this year, let alone really good yielding stuff, especially if guys have to back off fertilizer. And Jesse, you know as well as I do, there'll be some people that have harvested good beans this fall that are going to say, you know what, I'm not spending $600 an acre to put a corn crop out. I'm going to go ahead and maybe be a little heavier on beans next year. So I would say if I was a buyer of one and a seller of one, I'd be more of a buyer of bean or corn and maybe a little more of a seller of beans. I just kind of feel like that's the vibes that the market's giving me at this point.
That's a great point you make about fertilizer and, just looking at the cost of inputs in general and everything that's swirling around the market. And you and I talk about this quite a bit. It just feels to me like if I'm a farmer, I'm going across the scale here in the next couple of weeks and I have a chance to lock in solid profit. Why not? I mean, it just seems foolish not to, Matt. And I know we talk about that quite a bit.
Absolutely. The thing is, I feel like a lot of times we kind of complicate our situation. I understand. I had a couple of people call me here in the last couple of days and say, I don't know. We're pushing back up towards $13 beans. I don't know if I want to sell basis the board at 13. because a lot of folks are saying they could go to 14. And I totally understand how the mind works whenever it comes to this. I mean, I talk about it all the time and I go out and speak, but for me, we've got to give a little bit of respect and a little bit of at least a nod of the head to what was going on a year ago. A year ago, we were all scared to death we weren't going to make money yet again after several years of low income. You come in here this year and you're still looking at $4 and $5 above on soybeans than what a lot of people were selling across the scale a year ago. And so to me, I think you got to quantify your income. If you want to look and see whether we can go to $14, there's so many tools out there that you can use, whereas you can lock in a worst case scenario and still participate. But I'll tell you what, I don't want to let all the chips ride because to me, there's a real good opportunity here to have the best year most of us maybe have ever had.
Matt, let's segue over to livestock. Hogs, it started off slow today, but ended up strong. Another follow through with expanded limits today. We didn't use the $7 limits in hogs, but we still had a pretty strong follow through day. Very bullish Hogs and Pigs report on Friday. What are your thoughts on this hog market?
Yeah, I think livestock in general, it's pretty tough for me to get too awful bearish. I mean, hogs they got the good news Friday. The cattle on feed wasn't so rosy, but to me, the hog report, I would look at it similar to probably the last time you and I talked. I think it's a good opportunity for a little bit of a price bump in here. But at the same time, if I'm going to look for long-standing good prices in hogs, I've got to see really good demand out of China on a consistent basis. That's not always something that we can count on. So, if I was able to lock something in, to me, seeing what we've done over the last couple of days with $4 plus moves to the upside, I think I'd be taking advantage of it because there's no guarantees that we're going to see this type of a price move stick around very long.
And on the cattle market, I know feeder cattle got back some of Monday's losses as well. That live cattle market's kind of hung in there. It feels like the live cattle market may have priced in those cattle on feed numbers we saw last Friday, which was kind of neutral to a bearish report for cattle on feed here last Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you've had several bullish cattle on feed reports in the last several months. And so this one wasn't bullish. But at the same time, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not like it was uber bearish. I thought that an easier tone to start yesterday would have made sense, and then maybe be able to rally back a little bit. But it's pretty hard for feeder cattle to be able to rally whenever corn was up 13 cents yesterday. So I can kind of understand. I think that spilled over to fats just a little bit. Come in here on Tuesday. It looks like we've already stabilized. But as far as I'm concerned, feeders going down like they did on Monday, I've had a lot of people say, well, maybe this is the opportunity for someone to go out and buy feeders. I've told you this before, and I'll say it again. I'll tell you, if feeders go down $10 on the board of trade, I'm still not too sure that as a feeder, you're going to be able to go out and find a good deal anywhere because that feeder cattle market's pretty hot right now. Everyone seems to be wanting to as far as the cash market's concerned, everyone seems to be wanting to feed out several head this year. So it'd be very interesting to me to see how that plays out moving forward. But as far as fats are concerned, I can't say that I'm bearish fat cattle on down the road. I think the numbers suggest to me and the demand suggests to me that we're going to have at least stable markets and probably a chance for some excitement on farther down the road.
Lastly, back to the outside markets. We had a lot of pressure there today. There's worries last week about Evergrande in China. There's worries this week about a government shutdown. What are you watching outside market-wise? Is there anything that has you concerned or anything that has you optimistic right now?
Outside markets, anytime you see the dollar going up, 0.4 on the day into levels we haven't seen in a year, I mean, there's no question that you're going to see some serious headwinds. I mean, the energy markets were pretty strong early this morning, then you backed off, but you're still looking at $75 crude oil. So that's a really good thing. Of course, the Dow was getting beat up as we talk, and to me, it shows me that in a lot of ways it was a bit of a risk-off day. And so you've got to think that's going to spill over to commodities, and it did. But in the grand scheme of things, I still think there's a lot of really good things going on. $75 crude oil, I think that your margins on ethanol are going to stay good for corn. And, of course, biodiesel is still something that people are going to continue to hang their hat on as far as soybean demand is concerned.
Well, Matt, a lot of great insight as always. Before we run out of time, I know you have a special guest riding in the combine cab with you. We should
Absolutely.
probably bring her on.
How are you?
I am great. Betsy Gibbon is with us. And are you enjoying the combine ride, Betsy?
I am. I don't get to do this as much as I would like. So this is a nice treat, but I'm here to verify Matt's actually working. For those of you who don't think he is, he is working.
Well, I noticed you had the camera as well, and I'm sure you're working on some more great content. I know you've been doing a lot of that for the Ag Market team here recently. So we'll be looking forward to seeing what you come up with.
Thank you. No, it'll be good. Exciting things to come, that's for sure.
Definitely. Well, and Matt, I appreciate you taking the time as well. And Betsy, thanks for saying hi. And I know, of course, folks can find out more, get a little advice from your team, agmarket.net, or you guys have the app as well, don't you, Matt?
Absolutely. Agmarket.net, agmarket.app. Either way, a pretty good place to get a hold of our info, research, and ways to get in touch with all of us as well.
Awesome. Appreciate the time. Enjoy the combine, and we'll talk again soon, Matt. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
Matt Bennett and Betsy Gibbon with agmarket.net joining us today here on Market Talk. Find us online, markettalkag.com. This has been the Tuesday, September 28th edition of the show. Jesse Allen, have a great afternoon.